Hello, my name is John and today we're in the cockpit of the L-39C. In this video I wanted to give you a basic introduction into the aircraft, show you where the different panels and instruments are located, and also at the end of the video show you how to start up the aircraft easily. So let's get going. Here in the front seat we have a couple of instruments. Most of them are also available in the back seat. And as this aircraft is a training aircraft to train new pilots, the back seat also has a couple of options to simulate failures of different systems and stuff, and you can in most of the cases override the pilot in the front. Anyway, we will start off with the front cockpit, as it's the cockpit you will probably spend the most of your time. Directly in front of the pilot we have the basic 6 instruments. Top left starts with the airspeed indicator, which can show the indicated airspeed with the SIG needle, the true airspeed with the SIN needle, which is currently not visible as it's behind it, and in the window up here we have the Mach number. Here in the middle we have the artificial horizon, which is basically similar to any artificial horizon you're already used to. Then over here we have the vertical speed indicator as well as the turn indicator combined in one instrument. Below it we have the radiomagnetic indicator showing you the direction to the tuned ADF station. Below the artificial horizon we have the HSI, the horizontal situation indicator, which basically is a compass, also being able to show the RCPN output and the way to the nearest RCPN station. Over here we have the altimeter giving you the altitude in meters. It's the same device basically as you have in the MiG-21 and also the Su-27 and any other Eastern European aircraft. Below that we have the radar altimeter, where we can set our dangerous altitude. We'll put that to 0 as it will start beeping once we turn on the aircraft. Then down here, this small instrument shows the range to the tuned RSPN station. Then next to that we have the mechanical clock and stopwatch. Further on to the right here we have the engine instruments. At the top left we are starting with the RPM indicator. It has 2 needles. The number 1 is showing the N1 RPM and the number 2 is showing the N2 RPM. Next to that we have the engine exhaust gas temperature. Below that is the fuel amount in kilograms. Left of that we have a triple instrument where the top needle shows the fuel pressure, and don't be worried, this instrument will often show something close to 5 or even 0, and that's because it shows the pressure at the fuel injection port, which is usually quite low. It's just never allowed to go over the maximum of 65. But it can stay below that as long as it wants. And down here we have, or inside this instrument down here we have the oil pressure, and next to that the oil temperature. Down here this instrument shows the cockpit differential pressure with the cockpit pressurization system. Next to that we have the engine vibration indicator showing you how far the engine vibrates, or how fast the engine vibrates. And next to that we have the volts and current meters. And this is basically the set of the most important flight instruments. Additionally to that we have some more information instruments we will talk about now. And let me put away the pilot for a second here so we can see what's going on. Top left here we will start off with the oxygen tank, the remaining air in the oxygen tank, as well as the oxygen pressure and the flow. Below the gear lever, a bit hidden, is the G meter. Also already indicates that you won't need it very much because it's in a position where you can really see it usually, but oh well. Okay, down here let me zoom in a bit so we can properly see down there. We have the brake pressure for the right and left wheel brake, as well as the emergency brake pressure. And the last set of indicators are over here, next to the emergency hydraulic controls, and those are the, those are the main hydraulic pressure and the emergency hydraulic pressure. Okay, and that that's basically all the indicators available in the aircraft. Now we'll briefly go over the systems. About most of the systems I will do a more in-depth video at a later point, but just for now we'll do a brief look at the individual panels and buttons. Let's start at the back right. We have a couple of circuit breakers, all selectable. You can turn them off or on to your will, but normally they should be on. Then we have the emergency flight controls. We can switch the landing gear from primary system to backup system, for primary hydraulic system to backup hydraulic system. Same goes for the flaps. Then we can extend the ram air turbine. I won't do that now because then it will be extended. And the ram air turbine is basically something you have in bigger airliners usually. And it is basically a small wind turbine that extends out of the aircraft, allowing the aircraft to have hydraulic pressure, so you can move your flight controls even if the hydraulic system is not pressurized by the engine anymore. And next to that we can connect the main hydraulic system and the emergency hydraulic system. And this is a switch you will need, or you would need quite a lot during flying, as the emergency hydraulic system is charged up on the ground, like the hydraulic press is charged up on the ground, but as soon as you retract the gear, this charge up won't happen anymore. And the hydraulic pressure will slowly decay in the backup system, and you have to connect the main hydraulic system to the backup hydraulic system every now and then to recharge the emergency hydraulic pressure, so you have it available in case the main hydraulic pressure fails or main hydraulic circuit fails. Anyway, the next instrument panel above that is the RSPN. You probably already know that from the MiG-21, which has the same panel. Then next to that I think we have radio. Not too sure about that, never used that so far, but it should be a radio at least. Above that we have a couple of controls. On the left side we have the air conditioning. Most of these settings can be left on automatic, which will do the trick. Next to that we have the navigation lights, where we can select the brightness 30%, 60% or 100%, and we can decide if they are off, flicker, or if they're fully on. And above that we have a couple of switches regarding the navigation system source. This panel up here is the Adf panel, allowing you to tune an Adf station. How that is done I will show in a later video as well, because that's quite a big task, or not a big task, but it's too much for this video, so we'll leave this out for now. Above that we have the main circuit breaker panel, which we will use during startup, and I will talk about that in a minute. Then we have the oxygen pressurization, the cockpit oxygen pressurization system, which we will turn on once the canopy is closed and the engine is running, so the cockpit gets pressurized. Then up here we have the gun sight and the gun camera, and the gun camera even works. So for example, if you run a track of a mission, you will see on the bottom right of the window, you will see the pictures from the gun camera, and in the bottom left you will see the SARP output, like the graphs drawn by the system, which is recordable if flight data recorder, which I will talk about in a minute as well. Then here we have a lot of warning lights that will indicate different failure states. You will see them illuminated during startup, and during the flight all of them should be out, or at least no red and amber light should be illuminated. We will also talk about the gun sight in a later video. It has a couple of different modes, different settings for different weapons you're trying to employ, but we will see how that is done in a later video. More weapon related stuff can be found here, where we can turn on the master arm and turn on the gun sight, jettison weapons and stuff like that. And to the left of that we have the signal flare dispenser, which is similar to the one in the KA-50 or the MA-8, where you can shoot out one of 4 different colors of signal flares to mark, for example, our location to a friendly or something like that. Below that we have the trim indicator for the pitch trim and the lateral trim. The lateral trim light should be on the ground, indicating that the aircraft that the trim is zeroed out, and the pitch trim should be on the point for the start position. We have the gear handle over here, nothing unusual about that. already, you probably already know how that works. One thing you need to know, or like to know, is that if you right click it, you can put it into the emergency position, emergency track position in this case. Okay, continuing further left, we have the gear lights and the flaps extended lights, as well as the speed brakes extended lights. We will see how that works, or that's quite intuitive. You don't even need to see how that works. You probably figure it out yourself. Then here we have the brake lever. If you pull it back, we go into the emergency brake. If you push it forward, we go into parking brake. We will leave this just at the off position, which is here. Then we have engine and APU controls. We'll talk about them in a second. Flap controls, where we can select the flaps we want. The first one is no flaps, takeoff flaps and landing flaps. Then we have the throttle, should be quite self-explanatory, with the speed brake switch on the side of it. Then we have another radio selector, some radio controls, intercom controls. Then we have the pitot tube heating, and we have the switch for the flight data recorder, which, as in the MiG-21, creates a SARP file, I think, which you can then look at and diagnose your flight afterwards. And that's basically all of the controls in the front cockpit. If we now hop over to the back cockpit, we can look at some other stuff, but most of the controls are just the same. However, as this aircraft serves as a trainer aircraft, you have some additional stuff in the back cockpit which you don't have in the front cockpit, and that's this panel down here, which allows you to simulate failures. For example, here you can turn off the total air pressure, you can turn off the static air pressure, and you can turn off, for example, the ADF and the attitude indicator. Also, the rear cockpit is more of an override style. You can override the inputs of the front pilot. Not the flight controls, those are just mirrored, but for example, the landing gear. This has 3 positions, and if you remember, the front landing gear just had 2 positions. And the difference is that with the 3-position landing gear, you can keep it in neutral, which will allow the front pilot to select the landing gear position, or you could put it up or down, overriding the landing gear position of the front pilot. Same goes for the speed brake and a couple of other things. But at the end, most of the stuff is the same, and yeah, you figure out what the different buttons and different indicators do. So let's hop back to the front cockpit again, and as we have talked about pretty much all the panels and all that stuff, I will now continue onwards and I will show you how to start up the aircraft. Okay, now let's first close the canopy. Left control and C closes it. Then we will lock the canopy, else the aircraft will later flash a warning like it does, and we don't want that. Next thing we do is to turn on the battery. As you can see, and also probably hear, is that the aircraft came to life. A lot of warning lights blinking, and as far as I know, there is no way to quit the warning lights or accept them. They just keep blinking until the problem is fixed. Bit annoying, but I guess that's how the aircraft was designed. Next thing we want to turn on is the engine switch here, which basically allows the engine instruments to be powered. Now the next thing is the flight data recorder. We want that to be on before we start the engine, so if we kill the engine or if the engine catches fire, we can later tell ground crew, well, we did nothing wrong, that's how it was supposed to be. Anyway, now here at the engine control panel, down here are the APU control buttons. To start the APU, you just leave this turbo cover and then push the turbo button, and the APU should start. This can be here, and also once the APU is running, you will get the indication that the APU is ready to start the engine. The whole process takes about 25 seconds for starting the APU, and here we go. Turbine starter light is on, allowing us to start the turbine. Next thing we do, we can close this cover again. We open the engine cover, press the engine starter light. Now the engine will start, and we will see the N1 RPM needle coming up. At 20% you will move the throttle forward into the idle position, as I did now. And now at any second the system, here you see the engine now is getting fuel and it's spooling up. Engine exhaust gas temperature is rising, oil pressure is rising as well, which is good. If it would wouldn't rise, we would turn off the engine again. Oil temperature is okay. It will get warmer. I will wait for that to be a bit warmer later on. And the APU already shut itself off again, as the engine is now successfully started. Continuing with the startup procedure, we will turn on the main generator and the backup generator. Then we will turn the inverter for the instruments, allowing, for example, the attitude indicator to be powered. Then we will turn on both 115 volt inverters. We will turn off a lot of more systems, mostly power to the different navigation devices and radios. And then we also want to turn on these two switches. One is the de-icing, one is nurse system. And then we can also turn on the wing tank pump. And you can now see the wingtip tanks light is illuminating, meaning that the wingtip tanks are empty and we can turn off the system again. If you fully fuel the aircraft, 100 liters of fuel will be stored, or 100 kilograms of fuel will be stored in each wingtip, and they will be consumed first if you have this wingtip tank pump switch on. And once those tanks are empty, the wingtip tanks light will go on, meaning you can turn off the wingtip tanks pump again. Anyway, that's all done that on that pedal, and now the only master caution remaining is the air conditioning off, and that's fixed by turning forward this lever, pressurizing the cockpit, which will take a couple of seconds. And once that's done, the air conditioning off light will go off. Now I also want to turn on the navigation lights to flickering, so we have the navigation lights blinking. I want to bring the flaps to the takeoff position, and I will turn on the taxi light. And now only one thing left to do is to tell the ground crew to remove the wheel chocks. And this is new. This is the first aircraft I think that has wheel chocks, and if you don't remove them you won't move, because they keep the aircraft in place quite good. And how to remove the wheel chocks is quite easy. You call up the radio menu by pressing the radio shortcut. You go F8 ground crew, then you press F4 for the wheel chocks and F2 to remove them. And as you can hear, the chief will remove the wheel chocks, allowing us to taxi out in a second. Now if we have a look at the exterior of the aircraft, let me move the bar, yeah, perfect. We have the flaps in the takeoff position, the lights are flickering, engine is running, obviously. Can do a short test of the flight controls. All works as it should, that's cool. And yeah, that's a good sign. And let's get back into the cockpit again. And once in the cockpit again, we can start to power up and taxi out. Just needs a bit of power to start moving. Then once it rolls, you can pretty much put the power nearly back to idle and keep rolling. And when taxiing, you have to keep in mind that the nose wheel is not controlled or not steered directly. It's just a free casting nose wheel, and you select the direction of the aircraft during taxiing by pushing the rudder pedals in the direction you want to go, and then differential braking. As most of Eastern Europeans design, there's just one brake lever on the joystick, so you have to keep that in mind, that you only can assign one of your brake pedals or brake toe pedals to the braking axis. So to turn, you cannot just press the left brake, you have to press the common brake and then put the rudder pedals in the direction you want to go. It's basically the same system as in the MiG-21. Anyway, now the runway is up ahead. Before we go into the runway, we'll make sure the flaps are in the right position. Yes, they are. We will put the landing light into the landing mode. Slow down a bit. Check if the runway is clear. The runway is clear so far. That's cool. All systems look good. No warnings on the master caution panel. It means you're probably very good to go. Now just let's get the center line. Okay, maybe it turned a bit too far. Let's correct for that a bit. Okay, that's good, that will do. Now we'll put the aircraft, or put the engine to full throttle. Release the brakes when the RPM reaches about 90. There we go, brakes are released. Aircraft is accelerating, using the differential braking to steer the aircraft and keep it on the center line. Airspeed is rising, 100 kilometers per hour. reaching about 150. Gently pulling back on the stick. Nose is coming up. Positive climb rate. Put the gear up. And now let's trim it out so we can relax the pull on the stick a bit. There we go. This aircraft also has a roll trim, which is quite nice because you can trim the aircraft out to fly perfectly straight and level. And that's how we do. Okay, good. Now we'll bring the flaps up. Flaps are coming up. And we will continue accelerating. And once we reach 500 meters, I will reduce the throttle to the nominal position, which is the continuous power mode. And that's about 500 meters, reducing the throttle to nominal. That's about nominal. That will do. Well, reduce our climb a bit, and there we go. Just successfully started and took off with the L-39C. And I really appreciate the new terrain when I look out of the window. DCS 1.5 looks amazing. Even more looking forward to the new smoke and explosion effects with DCS World 4.20. And anyway, I hope I could show you how to start the aircraft. There's a bit more to learn, and I will hopefully put up a couple more videos soon enough, showing you how to employ the weapons like air-to-air missiles or air-to-ground rockets or air-to-ground bombs. And I also plan on showing or making a RSBN and ADF navigation video, and maybe also some videos about in-flight emergencies. Anyway, that's all for this video. I hope you enjoyed watching the video, and take care while flying and have a good flight, and see you in the next video.